Hey YouTubers, welcome to the channel. So today it's time for the annual service, or actually this is the biannual service of the Nissan X-Trail. In the US, a Rogue. Now this is a T32. So just to show you that, we're going to have a quick look at the VIN number. Not sure if you can see that coming out okay, but you can see there it's a JN1 TBN T32. Okay, so built September 14, delivered November 14. So just coming up to 9 years old, and we're going to be doing the oil and filter today, just keeping that simple, and we'll also take out the air cleaner separately and maybe just give that a quick blow over and change that another day. Okay, so first of all, I've got the car blocked up on a couple of wooden blocks. So there's a few different ways to get it a bit higher. That's just so I can get under. It's not too dangerous, it's just on some wooden blocks. And I decided this time I didn't really want to take the wheel off. So we're going to be doing the filter through this hole here. So I'll just show you the detail of that once we get into it. So we'll be taking off this panel and these fixing clips. So we'll just get into that in a moment to get to the oil filter. And I've also run the engine up so it's just nice and warm. So it's probably about, I don't know, 50 degrees, 60 degrees Celsius, and that's just to make the oil run a lot better. So these are the oil and filter we're putting in today. So the oil filter is a W67/1 man filter, and the oil in this I'm putting in the Castrol Edge synthetic, fully synthetic 5W30. What's important is both the API spec and also the ACEA A3 spec, as per the Nissan recommendations. But depending on your country, you'll obviously find some different oils based on that. So first things first, always lift the dipstick up just to let that drain down a bit in the tube, and we'll get the spanner onto the oil plug and we'll get that panel off on the side and show the oil filter. Okay, so we have got that panel off now. So if you just have a look at that, there's a few clips there. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6 clips in total you need to get off. I used this little trim tool to get those out, and they look like this. So you have to get the center pin out before the bottom legs will collapse in, and then you've got a chance of getting out. But they are pretty brittle. All mine are still in one piece currently, which is good. Then you'll be able to see the oil filter down here. So this is a QR25 engine, I think. Yep, which is the 2.5 litre 4-cylinder petrol, and the oil filter's there on the end next to the crankshaft. So we're just going to get some stuff on there before we drain the oil. We'll drain the sump oil first before we do anything, and we'll also get this panel cleaned up, just give that a wash outside, and then we will be using this oil filter removal tool. So mine's got a 19mm drive on it, or also a square drive for a socket, and that should be able to just give that a little rotation and get that loosened up. Sorry, it's a bit tricky one-handed. There we go. Okay, we'll get that loosened up and get that off once we've got the oil drained. Okay, so we just pop the oil plug out, so it's just sitting there on top of the tray, and that is a 14mm spanner for that, so we'll just let that drain down. And as you can see, because the oil's nice and warm, you can see that's just draining down nice and quickly. Once we've got that down, yeah, we'll get that oil filter off and try and capture the oil on that side as well and see how we go. Okay, so that oil's just finishing draining down, and following one of my comments I decided to try this tin foil trick just to keep the oil off the cross member there. It seems to work well, and we'll just put the filter down on the tray there. Okay, so I'm just going to let that drip down and then I'll get that housing cleaned up. Don't use any degreaser, just maybe WD-40 or a bit of a cleaner, but don't get any oil in the centre there where it goes into the engine, because that's not really where you want the oil. As you can see, the sump's just draining down now. So we'll just put a bit of fresh in at the top and let that flow down through that oil filter, and then get that filled up. So I just put some fresh in the top, and you can see it's just running down into the oil pan there, and none's really coming out through the oil filter. Okay, so we'll just let that drain down a bit, get this oil filter cleaned up and get it back on. Okay, so on the new filter we'll just put a bit of new oil on the O-ring there, or on the O-seal, sorry, the rubber seal, and also clean up the housing there. And that's just to make sure that when you put it on there's enough slip and you can really get that tight. This just goes on and it starts in its thread. Tricky one today. There we go. Just make sure that's going on nicely, and just to make that hand tight. Just nice and tight. And that should be enough, and it shouldn't leak down for the next one. Okay, so when that oil's cleaned up, we'll just get the sump plug and clean that up and get that back in. Okay, we'll get the sump plug back in now, but just to show you, I did my usual mod. So I've put a little high strength magnet on the end there, tapped in the end of the sump plug, and put that little stainless steel bolt in, and so that will now pick up any metal filings. Be able to clean those off next time we change the oil. Okay, so we'll get that sump plug back in. I think I'll just whip that back in and we'll do that up just pretty tight, just using the single spanner there, and get that tightened up. Okay, so time to get some fresh in. Sorry it's such a bad pour, one-handed. So we'll put in about 3 litres, 3.5 litres. I don't know if you saw that from the emptying, but it definitely didn't take the 5 litres to fill it. And of course we've got to fill the filter. We'll just get some of this in, see how we go on the dipstick. Okay, so including that bit at the beginning, I've put in from the 5 litres down to the just over the 1.5, so just under 3.5 litres. And after running the engine and just letting it drain down a little bit, you can see hopefully that oil level is just about on the low, just about on the quarter on the low. So we'll put some more, about another ½ litre in, and see how that goes. Okay, so right on 4 litres used now. Run the engine a couple of times, and not sure if you can see, but that's where the mark is, halfway between empty and full. So I'm going to call that done. Might put a bit more in just to top it up, but otherwise, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.